Hola chicas y chiquetes, it's me Pats here in Mistellation, and today I'm bringing you a book review. I kind of want to explain why I haven't uploaded anything since September the 20th. But I'm sure you didn't click on this video to get bored, so I will skip the venting. Today's book, surprisingly, was not in my March book haul, but it has been on my TBR for quite a long time. For the past few months, I've been reading A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. Yes, I said 2 months. And it has nothing to do with the fact that it has 700 pages. This book is about an alchemist scholar that runs into a bewitched book while doing research for her thesis and everything, and she doesn't really want to be a witch, or rather to use magic in her life. So the first thing she does is return the book to the library. What's the problem? Well, the problem is that apparently that book has been missing for centuries, and from then on, every single supernatural creature starts following her. Now, there's this one creepy vampire, Matthew, who approaches her directly about the book, and from then on, it's all romance and a race to see who can get their hands on the book first. Now, I gave this book 4 stars, which is a 6.86 over 10 on the Copal method, and I'm going to tell you how I rated each category. Now, I rated the characters with a 7 because they were not bad. They were not flat characters, but you could obviously tell that Diana and Matthew were the main characters, and everybody else was just part of this crowd surrounding them and helping the plot to keep on, but they were not really people. Yeah, we don't really have that depth into their personalities. So yeah, it's a 7, which means good, but not quite. Now, the atmosphere was a little bit better. I count the atmosphere as the world building in fantasy books. So I ended up rating it a 7 because although I liked the magic system the author created, I didn't really get if there was any kind of prize for using magic. And they were really using very powerful magic all the time, but like they weren't even tired, nothing. There were no consequences for using magic, so yeah, I kind of think that could have been developed a bit better, so that's why I gave it a 7. Also, I want to mention that I had like a minor issue with the whole thing because the author calls the magic in her book Wicca, and I mean, as a witch myself, I didn't feel offended, but maybe it's because I'm not Wiccan. Well, the whole problem is that although Wicca involves in some cases the practice of magic, it's not magic. Wicca is just a religion that can involve magic. So yeah, but like the biggest problem with this was that the only thing related to Wicca that the author mentions in her book are the Sabbats, and she just mentions like 1. So it kind of felt like that, like she wanted to give realism to the magic system, and she thought, well, I'm gonna name it Wicca, and so modern real-life witches will be compelled to read it. But in the end, it felt shallow because like she only mentioned 1 festivity, and the rest of it was just like traditional fantasy magic. Like they snapped their fingers and the laundry was done, and honestly, I'm not upset by that. Like I enjoy reading fantasy books and I enjoy reading fantasy witches in fiction, but you know, the whole problem with this is that she called it Wicca, in Wicca is not magic. And it's not well portrayed in the book. So yeah, I feel that maybe Wiccans reading this book can feel upset by it or annoyed. Now, the writing was significantly better than the other two categories. Okay, although this book has a lot of scientific and alchemic dialogues, I rated it a 9 because I think it's so well written that I didn't even get bored. Well, in my defense, it really talked about topics that I'm interested in, like evolution and, you know, genetics. So yeah, it was not boring, but like I felt that the author really went overboard to make these parts of the book that were more technical and scientific and less narrative to be appealing to the reader, so we don't get bored to death talking about DNA. However, I had a problem with the reading, and this book was full of sentences like every word he spoke made him sound more French to me. What does that even mean? Also, the fact that Matthew smelled like cloves and cinnamon? Is he a vampire or a pumpkin pie? You know, there's nothing bad with describing a character's smell, but like Diana was talking about cloves and cinnamon like every 2 pages, and it was like, yeah, I get it. But there were other things that were even more icky than this. Like, there was a particular scene in which Matthew tells Diana that he would rather kill her himself than let anybody else hurt her. And objectively, I know that this was supposed to be the prime of romance discourse and that it was supposed to make my legs tremble, but honestly, from then on, I could only think that Diana would be much better off if she ditched this weirdo. Like, did he just threaten her life because she was attacked by somebody else? How is that supposed to be romantic? The plot was also really good. I rated it a 9 as well because just reading the synopsis made me really want to read this book, and it made me very happy to find out that they had it in my local library. And when I read it, it didn't really let me down, so that was a relief. Okay, the intrigue was nowhere to be seen. I'm trying not to be a jerk and I rated it a 4, but to be honest, for me, there was no intrigue whatsoever. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing because I don't feel that it affected the story or it made it boring or anything, but like, yeah, it's just how it is. Okay, I've been literally waiting for this one moment. The logic in this book barely made it to a pass. It has a 5 because the more I read, the more it reminded me of Twilight. At some point in the story, the alchemical and scientific part of the book led to the question of whether vampires and witches would be able to procreate, after insisting that they were 2 different species and that technically they shouldn't be able to crossbreed. It's not that there is something inherently bad about this choice of plot, and I kind of liked how it was scientifically justified, but it did remind me a lot of the Forsaken baby vamp, and honestly, it just gave me the creeps. This was also insta-love, not my favorite romance trope. And when I say insta-love, I mean that they went from despising each other to being the person they most trust in the world for no apparent reason. Like, there was no change in their relationship whatsoever. There was just some point between page 150 and 200 that they were just like, you know what? I kind of like your company. It was like, why? Did I just skip some pages and didn't realize? But not gonna lie, okay? I enjoyed reading this book. It made me laugh a lot, and it didn't seem long to me despite being fucking massive. So it has an 8 on enjoyment, and it doesn't have more because some parts gave me the creeps. But it's not so bad, isn't it? Oli! Overall, would I recommend it? Well, if you really like romance and you don't care about insta-love, it's probably a great book for you. But if you don't really enjoy reading about scientific stuff in the middle of the whole romance thing, then it will probably be too long and too dense for you, because Harkness really gets into the scientific part. And honestly, I am a philology student, so I don't know if the science part is accurate or not, but it seemed like really well argumented to me, so I kinda want to believe that she researched about science and alchemy before writing this book, but I don't really know. I hope we can see each other soon, but I'm really starting to suspect that I won't be able to read anything until this hell of a semester ends. The only reason I did film this video is because I have to return this book to the library in like 2 days, so it was kind of an emergency. See you next time. Adeu!